Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. Today is Monday, December 22nd, 2025, and we welcome you to the show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. We ask for everybody, if you would, to send some love and support in our direction. We just found out this morning that our two grandchildren and their mom all have this latest influenza that's going around, and they ended up in urgent care this morning with 105-degree temperature, and so they're having a challenge. Looks like probably Christmas is going to be canceled till a little later than normal. So if everybody would hold a space for them, it would be appreciated. Ari was here on Friday with Lincoln, and she was feeling kind of punky, but fortunately we're clear, and all is rocking along here. So, and how is everyone doing? Anything exciting happening? Anything to report? Questions, thoughts, answers, ideas? Here comes Miss Susan B., who is she had these beautiful pictures on Facebook of her cat. She ostensibly had a picture. I don't know. She said the cat was laying on her, but we couldn't tell it was her. Hey, Susan, welcome, young lady. How are you doing?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you doing?
We're good. We're good. Our grandkids aren't doing so well, and their mom, they're experiencing. They went to urgent care this morning and found out they have influenza A, I think it is, going on. So they're challenged. Send love if you would. Other than that, we'd be rocking along. Went yesterday afternoon. There's a new
Avatar
movie out, and so if you think about going to see Avatar, take worksheets, breathe. Some of the same old stuff is there, although there's some new peeking forward of the possibility of love being the resolution. It was a powerful film. Had to do some breathing and some forgiveness work in it. So Susan, I couldn't tell it was you. I could tell your cat looked great in those pictures, but
yeah, that was my lap. He's sitting
cool.
right on my right leg.
Well, look, yeah, they tune right in, don't they? They know where the energy and the support's needed.
I know.
It's pretty cool.
Amazing. He'd come into my room and get up on the bed and line himself up and plop down.
Awesome. Well, shows that we all have a capability if we choose to listen to it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, there's a lot going on, but I wanted to make a report. This is a sort of a distant testimonial to the effectiveness of your tools, but my grandson Jacob, who has never used the tools directly, has finally seems to have gone off weed, and he found a church nearby, and the rector of that church is the wife of a good friend of my daughter's. So she's reporting to my daughter that this young man has started joining the church. He's joined the choir. He's going to AA meetings, and he's making friends, and everyone loves him.
How cool is that?
And he's been writing to his mother and saying, I owe you some apologies. I hope I can talk about this. How can I apologize for what I've done to you? Because I know I have hurt you. I posted things on your church website about how you abused me and they weren't true. And she thanked him, and she said, well, if you could go up there and take those down, and if you feel like it, say something about how these things were your inventions. The parish understands because he's been crazy in many areas, and so she's been beloved in her parish, and they've always trusted her. But I think what it is he finally saw that he's been hurting people, and he knew it was a byproduct of being on weed. For him, it made him crazy and paranoid. So those of you who are thinking weed's okay, it may be for you, but it wasn't for him. And he's finally dared to go off long enough because we wouldn't send him money. That's where you come in, doing the tools, doing the breathing, doing the wake-up sheets, deciding over and over and over again not to be codependent. Stand the ground, keep the love, picture him well, and let him be. And we knew we might lose him in all that. And so far, it looks as if he's coming back. So I just wanted to thank you for the tools, and also thank you because the tools are useful, even if nobody lives up to them. And you can teach them and be a lousy exemplar. So, I haven't always modeled the tools very well myself. I don't think any of us have. We all have blind spots.
Susan, I suggest you throw that power person idea away. You have been a profound example of using the tools, a profound example for everybody.
Well, they have saved my life. And one thing I've noticed getting this hip fixed, who cares about the hip pain? I've been very depressed. And I've been lying here thinking, well, where's the wake-up sheet here? It's so global. It's just a general feeling of darkness. And today it began to lift. And I'm still sort of dealing with a lot of stuff, including Tim Hayes's previous show, which you may listen to or not. But there's a lot of processing going on, and I just feel as if the tools themselves, beyond humans, are the safety net. And it's been wonderful. I'll add, working on Jeannie's book. That was also, I could go into her book when I just had nowhere else to go. And just working on picking through and being a picky editor was helpful. So Jeannie, thank you. So I don't need to stay on.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you about Jacob because I wrote to him. He's been blocked for months. I wrote to him and I said, welcome back. And he wrote back and said, it's good to be back. I love you. And it's just been purely sweet. And he just got scammed. He was employed by somebody who promised to pay him. He told us he couldn't tell us what he was doing, but he was being paid well. Well, they never paid him. He finally realized it was a scam. Somebody just used weeks of his time to do work for themselves and then never pay him. But even that, it seems as if he's found something healthy. And I know the church isn't the healthiest place, but I think this church, he's talking about going to seminary. And I think going to seminary will be a wonderful buffer and a place for him to explore who he is. Whether he goes for ordination is beside the point. But it seems very sweet that he would choose going in his mother's direction. So anyway, I've talked a lot, so I'm going to get off and listen.
Well, my offering would be that one, accolades to your daughter for the work she's done, that she's held that she's joined in holding that space for him.
Yeah.
And that you're scoring 100% with two grandsons that were way off the rails, like the kinds of alcohol and drug addiction that take young people out for years. And that you've been a major factor I would offer in bringing both of them back, and that they're both back within 2-3 years from that kind of addiction. That's profound. So once again, I'll invite you to maybe dig out the Power Person worksheet and let go of this self put down idea that there's some deficiency in you in the way you're moving through life and the space that you're offering, especially to these kids. I think it's just monumental.
Well, it can be bumpy and messy, and yet it's all right. I don't mean to beat up on myself. I think you can be a very imperfect human being and
Yes.
push the tools.
Yes. I sat through watching the Avatar movie yesterday, and the main thing that I had to do was to ask Ruka to keep reminding me to keep my breath moving. There's some heavy duty stuff in it, just, the craziness of the culture versus decency. And and so that was my main thrust through it all, was just breathing and asking for support and being reminded to breathe. So cool.
Okay, carry on.
Holding the space for you, dear heart. That's awesome.
Thanks, Michael.
So delighted to hear about him.
Yeah.
Sweet. Big breaths with you. And your cat. And how's everybody else doing? Anyone have anything to report? Anything to share?
Terry, how is Ian doing?
He's moving right along. I'm traveling between projects, and there's quite a bit of traffic, so I may not be able to engage too deeply here. Yeah, pay attention. But yeah, I just spoke with him earlier. He's maintaining, he's developing a network, he's going to his meetings, and one day at a time,
Awesome.
one step at a time, we'll just
one breath at a time.
Exactly, one breath at a time.
Joining you in doing that, my friend.
Oh, it's a beautiful day here in Piedmont, North Carolina. I'll say that. The sky is gorgeous, sun's shining, and things are okay. Good to hear you, Susan. I feel your pain and relate to it. And I spoke with Dan a little bit earlier, and he's still working through his stuff. There's just, we all need each other. Okay, it's,
for sure.
That's the best we can do, is show up there for each other. And like Susan was alluding to, with no judgment, we're all doing the best we can. It's like, let's keep moving it forward and do the best we can. Yeah, and living and learning every moment.
With you, sir, for sure.
Yeah.
I was talking with a gentleman today, and his experience of the hopelessness of the past trapping him, and just being able to hold the space for the realization that it can be done if one acquires and uses the right tools, and that we're doing the best we can to offer a set of tools, not necessarily that saying they are the right ones, but they work, and encouraging everybody to use whatever tools you have to move any form of hostility or fear out of your physiology, out of your mind, out of your perception, so that human life pervades. And human life is clearly delivered into our tissue structure through the breath. And it is clearly the conscious active presence of love. So joining you in that and recognizing that when someone has something different going on and there is emotional trauma around that, that the mind is so expert at creating images of how our trauma is about somebody else. And just recognizing that the breath keeps bringing us back, keeps bringing us back. So delighted that you're back. Delighted that you're with us today. How are you doing? Anyone, anything to share?
Hi everyone, it's Anita. My voice is back.
Wow, nice.
Hey,
I bet that's a relief.
Oh boy, is it ever! Yeah, that was miraculous, remarkable. It was amazing, and I had a really massive epiphany yesterday. There are other people in my world who are now experiencing the exact same symptoms that I had, and I thought, whoa, so how is this affecting, obviously these people that are currently being affected by the same thing, and it's just people that are in my circle that are experiencing the same thing, how massively transformational this particular movement has been in my world, that it's impacting others that are important to me and others that are at a distance from me as well, and just showing how deeply connected we all are. It was really remarkable to realize that.
I hear you loud and clear. I don't know if you've been on one of the radio shows or listened to any of the workshops where I've talked about something I used to do back, not even sure now, 35 or so years ago, is I used to keynote at an annual conference called Global Sciences. And there were just a really wide variety of different scientific minds that would gather at this conference. And one year we had a gentleman named Marcel Vogel who showed up at the conference as one of the presenters, another one of the keynoters. And Marcel is a man who is at the point where I met him, just his really sweet presence, is in his mid-60s or thereabouts. He's passed now, unfortunately. And the kind of mind that Marcel had was at the age of 11, he invented, and because his family had no money, he patented personally at the age of 11, chemical light. If you go to a sporting event and you buy a plastic tube that has glass tubes inside of them, you break them and the chemicals mix and it lights up. They're green. You see people going around with them around their necks and such. Well, he invented that at the age of 11 and patented it himself. Wow. The reason why you and I are able to use computers today is because Marcel was the only non-degreed scientist that worked for IBM. Non-degreed because nobody could teach him anything. He had such an amazing mind. But he invented the magnetic coating that goes on the plates in our hard drives that allows our hard drives to operate. So that's Marcel Vogel. And this particular year that he came to keynote, he brought a thing with him called a Delaware camera. The Delaware camera was invented by a man named George Delaware, an Englishman. And where the normal camera, when you flip the shutter, the button on it, the shutter opens, the light energy that's in front of the camera enters through the aperture, lands on the photographic plate, is registered there, and you develop it, and you get a picture of whatever was in front of the camera. But the Delaware camera works just a little differently. In front of the aperture, there's a tuning mechanism. So you can actually, just like a radio dial, you can tune this device in front of the camera so that if the camera is attuned properly, it will not take a picture of what is reflected by light, but what is present and reflected as energy. Example, tuned properly, Marcel puts an acorn in front of a camera and takes a picture. And what shows up on the photographic plate is an oak tree. Now, the average person would say, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, how can an oak tree show up? Well, if you think about it, I'm in a room, you're in a room, and gee, there are at least, I don't know, probably 500 different pictures and pieces of music and voices going through my room right now, and I don't hear a darn one of them unless I've got the right tuning mechanism. If I turn on my television, I can tune to hundreds of different voices and pictures that are in my room right now, but because I don't have the tuning mechanism, I can't see or hear them. So when you think about an acorn, obviously in the acorn, the vibratory pattern of the energy of the oak tree, the instruction set for the oak tree is there if you can read it. Nobody's ever planted an acorn and gotten a Volkswagen grow out of the ground, or a tomato, or a cornstalk, or a child. Every time you plant an acorn, an oak tree, the acorn takes the water that's there and the minerals in the soil and the sunshine and the whatever, and it turns it into an oak tree because the pattern for the oak tree is there. And what this Delaware camera was able to do was tune to that pattern, and so you could decode it just like your television decodes a TV signal, and there it shows up on the photographic plate. Perfectly rational, perfectly logical from an energetic point of view. Now, this was not the upshot of why Marcel brought the camera this particular year to the conference. What he brought it for was to show us the pictures of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. So Marcel sets his camera, takes a picture of someone, and you can literally see the high energy waves leaving their minds, their bodies, their structures. So when you recognize, let's say, as you're talking about, you have an issue, you face the issue, energetically, when we realize everything is energy, we listen to Einstein. Einstein says this, on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Nikola Tesla says, if you want to understand the world, you have to understand vibration. Vibration is movement. So anything that has a particular form has that form because there is movement behind it that matches that form. If, let's say, in my family system, there's a big issue around speaking up, and, I don't know exactly what you were facing, what you were dealing with, or what's going on for the people around you, but you had, called in, and the challenge was with your voice, and it's great to hear your voices back. But if there was an issue in the energetic system of your family, your community, however close or however far away it is, and distance doesn't matter to these energy waves, then if nobody ever resolves that issue, then it's going to tend to stay locked down. But if one person opens whatever that issue is that has everybody locked down in that regard and works through it, then they open what I would refer to kind of metaphorically, although more really literally, they open an energy window where perhaps a skill that's never been known in your circle, whatever that issue was that you resolved, what you faced, that you dealt with, you opened an energy window that allowed that skill to be transferred to everybody in your circle. And not only everybody in your circle, but energetically, there's nothing we know of that can stop the high energy wave that leaves the mind when we think a thought. Nothing we know of can stop those high energy waves. So when you or anyone opens a particular issue and works through it, you create a space where that skill can be communicated. Another way you can verify this piece of information is you can take a look at the patenting of unique ideas. And there's several times throughout history where a particular brand new idea that's never been seen on the planet before, at least anywhere registered or known, was patented on the same day in 2 or 3 different countries around the world by people who had no knowledge of each other, no connection with each other, no communication with each other. But on the same day, they went into the patent office in their country and they patented that idea. It's all energy. So congratulations for developing the skill to work through whatever it is you work through that related to your voice, that opened the space for the people around you to begin to do the same. Now, of course, when we do a particular piece of work, we can only open the space for someone else to do it. We can't force them to do it. I like to use the example of, let's imagine we've got this old 100-year-old house, and downstairs there's an old sliding glass door that, nobody's been able to open for decades. We've gone down there and strained and stressed and hurt our backs trying to get the door open, but it's just so corroded and so messed up. But somebody one day takes the tools down and cleans the track, lubricates the track, cleans all around it, and gee, you can slide the door with one finger. Now, anybody that goes down there can slide the door with one finger because somebody did the work. So my offering would be that congratulations are in order that you opened that energy window for the people around you. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It really truly is awesome. I'm super excited, and it just is a great reminder of how doing the work positively impacts those around us, and what a remarkable demonstration this has been for me, and reminder of exactly that. So thank you very much for that.
Awesome. And in some cases, it may arouse a resistance in people that they're not willing to do their work. And so what will tend to happen in that case is there'll be a projection of, look what you've done to me. That can also happen, but that's just part of the game. That's the one that's called playing John the Baptist.
Yeah, I think even if they're not, if it stirs up things that people aren't ready to tackle, it's okay. It brings it forward, and
Exactly.
And then it's an opportunity for me to send them more love and continue to do my work. And
Joining
not
you in holding the space.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool. It's been on my mind to call you, but I didn't want to call you while your voice was so challenged. I have been kind of in the back of my mind that once I get that your voice is straightened out. One of the things that we talked about the intensive that I'd just love to know if there's anything moving forward on it. And Carrie, we'll get there in just a second if you would. But when you were at the intensive, you spoke about how up in Western Canada, there were certain lands that were being returned to their rightful owners, the Native Canadians who, or maybe we should say Native North Americans who lived there. And I just wondered if there's anything developing in that regard that's kind of been in the back of my mind since the intensive.
Yeah, there's lots of movement happening. It's not something that's going to resolve quickly. There have been class action lawsuits filed, and there are significant emotions stirred up by these actions because there's substantial financial losses for the people who own these properties because they're in areas where real estate is quite high. And now
Purport to own them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take some time, but there's definitely lots of things in motion, and it seems to be moving across the country as well. So, yeah, I'll have more to report on that as things progress.
Cool. Yeah, well, if anything develops that you think I might like to know about, I'd just kind of like to track that. So, appreciation.
Yeah. You bet. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
All right. Anything else exciting for you?
I'm actually just pulling into my granddaughter's driveway, so I'm going to have a little visit. She's been busy making lunch for me all morning, and so I'm going to actually sign off now. But I wanted to pop in and say hi to everyone and wish you all the joy and blessings of the holiday season, and good health and quality time with those you love.
Joining you in that for sure. Appreciation, and enjoy your lunch with your granddaughter.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Well, hey there, Miss Carrie. Do you still have a thought for us?
Yeah, I found Anita's conversation interesting, and especially her and your comments about thoughts, and that camera, and the fact that thoughts are things. And this is something that is a concept I've heard a lot that I kind of struggle with a little bit, because I'm not sure that I have the framework to put that idea in. And I was reading recently that scientists have developed a tool, a mechanism, a machine, a thing that they can put on people's heads. And I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's the Vogel idea or something else. And for people who cannot speak, it translates their thoughts into speech, so that it comes out of this microphone or whatever. So they're not using it widely at the moment. They haven't marketed it or put it on the public because they have an ethical issue, which is that people have private thoughts. And how do you distinguish between something someone wants to say or someone wants to keep private? So anyway, this concept of tapping into a thought or tapping into the energetic frequency of an acorn to make it a tree, or a thought to make it speech. How do you see that idea of thoughts are things that we just need to tune our frequency to? And that those thoughts are out there, like you were saying, people discover things at the same time around the world. There's this universal soup out there in the matrix or whatever, and people tap into it, and it's there for people, and they tap into it, and boom, 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 it is realized, in different places at the same time. I guess I'm looking for a little bit more clarity on that.
Yeah. Well, a few thoughts. We'll see if this helps to develop the brain cells or the clarity. First of all, let's listen to a quote from Max Planck. Max Planck is a man who won the Nobel Prize in Physics for quantum mechanics and developing the theory of quantum mechanics. It was interesting, back a few years ago, we were invited to I believe it was his 100th birthday celebration by the Institute of Science in Denmark. And it was pretty awesome because we were surrounded and in a room in conversation with all these Nobel Prize winning physicists. It was pretty cool. And we were invited by his daughter, and we actually got to sleep in the room that all of the artifacts she had of his were in that room. It was like his kind of a replica of his office. So here's what he says. In all my research, I have never come across matter. To me, the term matter implies a bundle of energy which is given form by an intelligent spirit. Now, I would, in the context of my latest understanding, I would delete that word spirit because that's the common language been given, but I would use the word an intelligent breath rather than spirit, going via the Aramaic understanding, but whichever word one chooses to use. As a man who's devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you, as a result of my research about atoms, this much. There is no matter as such. All matter, he says, originates and exists only by virtue of a force, which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is a matrix of all matter. Now, let me translate that from where I sit. You know, we've been told about this thing called the observer effect. And nobody seems to understand what the observer effect is. They talk about it, I know it's real, but if you have Yeshua's understanding, you know what the observer effect is. You listen to Yeshua and he says, in order to understand what he's teaching, you have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. In other words, you have to have that energy stored in brain cells in order for your mind to be able to generate a picture that corresponds with that particular thought or content. And my offering would be that when we hold a particular energetic pattern, the observer effect comes from the fact that there is this measurable high energy wave that Marcel was able to measure that leaves the mind when we think a thought. And when we understand that what resonance does, one of the things resonance does is it causes things to solidify. So now we have this potential energy, this quantum wave, that if there's somebody in the room that has the brain cells that match it, literally through resonance adds energy to that wave and causes it to collapse and become a particle. And who was a scientist said, without that effect, there would be nothing but wispy, ghost-like quantum waves. There would be nothing material at all. And the last analysis, what that says is, we're creators. And by the energetic patterns we gather, i.e. the thoughts, and if you go to the opening words in the book of John, there's another level of explanation there when you understand that this was physics they were talking about. The opening words in John do not say in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh. The opening words in John say in the beginning was the mind energy and the mind energy became flesh. So when one engages in a particular frequency mentally, they bring an energy into expression. And wherever there's resonance with that energy, we end up with what we call matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've heard you kind of say that before, but well, I've heard you say it before, not kind of say it.
Right.
And I think now it's really landed with me because I had that question, and it's because I had the brain cells to hear it, but the eyes to see it and the ears to hear it. So thank you. Yeah, it really made a lot of sense. That transference of energy from just that wavy, nebulous, energetic thing into us creating the manifestation of a thought.
So Fred Alan Wolf, who is a professor of physics at, or was, San Diego State University and the University of Paris, is the person I was thinking about, and I'm just looking for that quote now. Here it is. So this is a professor of physics from San Diego State. The only mystery of quantum physics lies in the wave-particle duality described by Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist. Atomic objects, protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks, and so on, sometimes behave like particles and other times like waves. When does an atomic object behave like a wave, and when does it behave like a particle? According to many quantum physicists, the answer depends on whether or not the object is observed. Unobserved, the atomic object appears as a wave spread out over space. But the instant it is observed, the wave collapses to a point and behaves like a particle. The action of simple observation causes a wave to collapse, producing the particle. But what kind of action, he says, is simple observation? Nobel laureates Eugene Wigner and Brian Josephson, and many other physicists, including myself, Fred Alan Wolf says, believe it may be a fundamental event beyond physics. We view it as the action of consciousness. So we live in an energetic world, and you know, it occurs to me to throw in another piece from Yeshua, who says this thing about resist not evil, and to recognize that when we engage in a frequency, especially if we emotionalize that frequency, then we become contributors to the energy behind it. And of course, there's a subtle dividing line between, well, you know, what if there's something happening out there and it really is coming down the tracks and it's going to kill people? You better pay attention to it. Yeah, pay attention to it. But if you pay attention to it through fear, as Job learned in his lessons after his great losses and recovery, he had the insight of that which I feared most has come upon me. If I put the energetic amplifier of fear behind something, then I just created a result. And then you read that whole book of Job, and, you know, shortly after Job experiences these great losses, he has the insight, oh, that which I feared most, but he's not able to act on it. There's a whole lot of conversation goes on. You know, his friends come and visit, and they tell him what's wrong with him, and he dresses them down and back and forth and back and forth. But then it speaks about he decided to change his thoughts, and where he was restored to the degree that he could be for what he had lost was the point at which he decided to stand as the space of love for his friends. That was where his transformation took place. He chose to be a blessing rather than the critic or the the one who knows what's wrong with somebody else. And if you look at, Job, that which I feared most comes upon me, the opening words in the book, he tells you what his fear is. Oh, I am so good, but my kids, I'm not sure. They might just screw the whole thing up. And there's his fear. And he produces all this trauma out of his fear. And of course, he blames his kids. Those who are unwilling to face and deal with what's going on inside themselves always make up a picture of whoever it is they're projecting on. And, there we're back to that power person dynamic and cleaning that one up.
I had a really good example of that kind of come to light last night. I was talking to my husband, and I noticed that he had posted on his Facebook page. Have you heard of the 3-eye atlas, quote unquote meteor?
No, I have not.
Okay, so 3-eye atlas has been this big meteor-like thing that's been barreling towards Earth. And then scientists and a lot of people realized that it wasn't actually structured like a meteor. And people were going, oh, it's a spaceship, it's a this, it's a that. So in my Facebook feed, all of the conversations about 3-eye atlas and all of the posts about 3-eye atlas were that this is a higher civilization coming to bring to us codes, genetic codes or whatever, for assisting us with our ascension or whatever. So it was all this really positive sort of stuff. On my husband's Facebook feed was, this is an alien spaceship. It's going to come into Earth, crash into Earth, and destroy us all.
Mm.
And of course, it didn't do that. The closest it came to Earth was on Friday, and it swerved and went around and did its thing. So his Facebook feed about 3-eye atlas was full of doom and gloom and disaster and fear. And so what he posted on it, kind of like other things, where people are saying doom and gloom, he's like, well, 3-eye atlas has gone by and look, we're still here, kind of thing.
Right.
I said, why did you post that? What's that all about? He said, oh, people on Facebook have been talking about this disaster. So fortunately, we weren't all disaster minded and didn't create that for ourselves. But I just was interesting to see that polarity of thought around something that either produced extreme fear in people or the promise of something
Resonated.
better.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
resonated the extreme fear. If the fear is there, it can't produce it. It can't cause it. But if it's there, it's going to.
Right. That's correct. I stand corrected with my language. So resonated the fear within them, or resonated the love and whatever. So I just saw such and I said to him, what's your Facebook feed like? What are you looking at? How are you viewing the world? And what are the algorithms giving back to you? And what he's attracting. So I just found that really interesting from what you were saying about that whole thing about the resonance and everything. So there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, you might want to look it up. It's the number 3, a little I, lowercase I, and then they usually do a slash and then atlas, ATLAS. And you'll probably find, if you do a search on it, you'll probably find some of the scientific research as well as doom and gloom stuff and the opposite. So that's interesting to me.
Everybody's got a reality all the time.
Right. Yeah. So so my thought was, what if I'm brainwashed? So, we can be duped. Is that resonance?
Well, the whole universe is one of resonance. For me, one of the measuring points is, can we establish what the true ideal is for a human being? And for me, years ago, we established this in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again work. And since then, we've always started the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop off with a question. And that is, how many have ever held a newborn? And of all the places in the world and all the people in the world, we've asked to go back and describe the nature of the newborn, not what was going on for the parent, the mother, or the father, but just bypass yourself and hold your newborn and give us a word to describe the essence of that newborn. And everybody's answer, I don't care where we are. I've asked this question in China, I've asked it in Tibet, I've asked it in Sweden, when we were in Denmark and, at this physics conference celebrating. And everybody's answer, I don't care who it is always some variation on the theme of love. So for me, there's the measuring stick. There's the standard to go by. Does it approximate love? Then it's human. If it doesn't, then pass. And what I've noticed in almost 60 years of doing this work is that those who choose to begin to let loose of, to free themselves from, to forgive anything that is out of alignment with that love, their lives get easier and happier and more joyful and more productive and more of everything that I think most everybody would say, yeah, I would like to have more of that. That's what happens. So, and, the fact that this man 2,000 years ago who understood the core physics of it all, who said a little leavening leavens a whole loaf, and I'm sure he was not talking about bread, was saying, if we can bring human essence, love, strongly enough into a critical mass of people on the planet, this energetic wave that we're talking about, this wave particle duality described by Richard Feynman, this wave, strengthened sufficiently, will reawaken, reactivate, or resonate the presence of love in the most traumatized, the most pained, the most greedy, the most hateful, the most quote unquote, whatever word you want, whatever the descriptors are, that when that becomes the energy of critical mass, then by that energetic wave theory, when that becomes strong enough, it's going to wake up. That line in the worksheet, I was put in the worksheet, I don't know, 30 years ago. When I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. We developed a school curriculum for a school down in Delray Beach, Florida. This goes back when my kids were small. My son's now, scary, he's 40. 44, I think now. So he was maybe 3 at this time. So this is 41, 42 years ago. And it was a Unity school, and they had kindergarten to grade 8. And I organized 4 different teachers. One was a storyteller. My direction was the physicist and the forgiveness. And there were 2 other people who were involved. And we developed a curriculum, which they still teach there, I understand, called Lessons in Living. This was before I ever created Laws of Living with Dan McDougall. This was a focal point, was Lessons in Living. And the first lesson that we taught, the first week, we would go in every week, these 4 teachers with a different lesson, and go throughout the whole school, kindergarten to grade 8. And the first lesson was the physics lesson of, I am the presence of love. When I choose love, it wakes up to love in everyone. It resonates, that energy. And that's basically, for me, that's what's guided my work for the last 4+ decades, was that insight.
So there are a lot of religious leaders who claim to have those insights, right? Like the preachers in the latest rapture that happened last year or didn't happen last year, and people quit their jobs and lost their pensions, and because they totally believed in this thing called the rapture. So what I'm getting from what you're saying is that we can't look outside ourselves for truth. We need to have to not only have discernment, but let go of thinking we know things that are not resonant with that nature of our being, which is love. Now, people might say, oh, the rapture, that's all about the love of Jesus and, all of this stuff, and going back into the arms of the Lord, and et cetera,
or
et
is it
cetera.
first and foremost about the fear of God?
No, yeah, it could be based in fear, yes.
And you go back and you listen to Yeshua's words personally, and he says, guess what? Blaspheme me. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Or deny me, depending on the translation, blaspheme, deny. But I came to connect you with your breath. Don't blaspheme that, or you're in deep, deep doo-doo.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you, if you listen to those people talking about their rapture, there wasn't much breathing going on. I bet you'd find that the primary energy was that of fear.
So don't blaspheme the breath is really basically saying, don't blaspheme
hold your breath.
your nature, which is the breath, which is the
exactly.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
The denial of the Holy Spirit. Again, the Greeks took the breath out of the nostrils, because kings can only control what they can control, and if it's in your nostrils, how's the king control it? So rather than speaking of the breath, rather than Yeshua's words about the importance of the breath, they took it out of our nostrils and they turned it into something about this ghost that came from somewhere out of the sky and was holy and was a holy ghost, and was the Holy Ghost thing. And all of a sudden, the breath was no longer in your nostrils. The power was in some ghosty thing. And so we hear the passage very, very errantly quoted. The denial of the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. There's the terror and there's the fear. Mm-hmm. There's this punishing, and so many talk about, the beginning of wisdom, the scriptures over 300 times warn, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. I mean, 300 times. And yet there are people who are saying fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And that's the kind of story that comes out of that fear-based and fear-mongering game. And what the passage in Aramaic would say is not the denial of the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin, but rather go to the Aramaic, and the word sin is a word that represents an energy that's off the mark. And the removal of that energy is called forgiveness. And there is one agent that can dissolve or remove those energetic patterns, and that is your breath. And when one denies their breath, i.e., holds their breath, then they're stuck not in an unforgivable sin, but they're stuck in unforgiveness. So Yeshua came to bring awareness of that, and he put himself secondary in that and said, you don't deny me all you want, but this is where the answer is, folks. It's in your own nostrils. It was given to you at the moment of your birth, your first breath. And every story that took us away from that is falsehood, would be my offering.
So I know it's after 1 o'clock, and the other idea I want to explore maybe at another time is I've heard it described as we have two breaths. We have the unconscious breathing, where we hold the breath when we're in upset or fear, etc. And then the conscious breath. And the yogis have a practice where they say, let the breath breathe you, which is allowing that conscious breath because you're focusing on the breath. And then there's the unconscious breath. So I would say too, doing breath work like the still point breathing or, other breath work modalities that many teachers have is really, really conscious breath at a different level than just when we're breathing. So like even at the gym, you're doing an exercise class and the teacher says, okay, now breathe. And this woman next to me said, but I am breathing. And she said, no, that's not the kind of breath I mean. I want you to take a deep conscious breath is what she meant. So I don't know if that's
in the Aramaic, there are three. In the Aramaic, there are three different types of breath.
Mm.
One of them is the breath that all of us share: the dog, the cat, the ant, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Ruka Dekucha. Yeshua distinguished a different type of breath for humans, one designed by the Creator, which we could call a conscious breath. And that is the breath of life. And that's what changes the whole game. So breathing is definitely key. It is life.
And the third one?
And the third one is that breath which is tied to hostility or fear that creates confusion and dissociation.
Okay.
So the reminder to breathe is to stay in that conscious breath. Any other thoughts in that? Thank you for that whole conversation, for bringing that up, by the way. It's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts to add?
I'm good. Thank you. Have a great holiday season.
Hey, it's in the plan. You too. Also, by the way, Jeannie, thank you. Dear Heart sent me a text, and I always get Max Planck and Niels Bohr mixed up. So it was actually Niels Bohr's home that we saw, his daughter's home that we stayed in, where all his lab stuff was. It wasn't Max Planck. That was my mistake. So thank you for joining us, and we hold the space for the best year yet of your eternal life coming up with this new year. And wondrous happy holy days. Extending love in your direction. Blessings. Bye-bye.